We look back on the game that just finished in Atlanta. La Furia Roja, Spain, has finally arrived at the World Cup with a big win over Saudi Arabia. The Spanish able to bounce back after what was a shocker in their first game. And the most important thing, Lamine Yamal is back for Spain, so much so that he only needed 10 minutes to open the scoring. And Mikel Oyarzabal, who also had a first game to forget. We know that stats about him not touching the ball in the first 30 minutes of that game against Cabo Verde. Well, we can put that to rest now. But overall, Spain finally feel like they have arrived, Ale.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is if you wanted an image of what this game was all about, the game was over before the first hydration break.
Yeah.
So we did not get halfway through the first half without this game already being out of control for Saudi Arabia, and Spain very much in control. Now, you mentioned Lamine Yamal. If there are two moments, and I think, Natum, you would agree with this, there are two moments that tell you that Lamine Yamal, not only is he back, but he is back being a productive player and at the top of his game. It's not even a minute in.
Yeah.
He's going after a defender on the right-hand side, and he gives him another, and then and then another, and the defender is,
Native got flashbacks of being in that situation,
well,
right?
and he just felt like, oh, because in order to do the stop and go and stop and go, you have to be able to trust your body, and you have to be able to accelerate from a sort of stop, go, stop, go. And in order to do that, the hamstring's got to be firing up. And that has been the issue for Lamine Yamal coming into the World Cup, the hamstring. Speaking of the hamstring, in order to get to the back post in the manner in which he did for the first goal of Spain, you got to go at full sprint, which he did. So you got to fire up the hamstring, and there was no issue there either. When you see those two things and you see how influential he is in the game for Spain, then you know that Saudi Arabia was in trouble, and therefore everybody else in this tournament may potentially be in trouble. He was very good today for the 45 minutes that he was on the field.
Oyarzabal scored the brace. We'll talk about him in a bit, but Natum, let's talk about the young man, the superstar, the one who we said and we hoped would start. We got that today. As Ale said, I mean, when he's on song, it is art. It is poetry. I know from a defender's perspective, you're going, would not want to go up against him, but just as a lover of the game, how much did you enjoy watching him today?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't think he was perfect as such, but I think the points that Ali was making about the fitness side of things, like how does this sprint affect you? Can you do it again? Can you repeat them? Can you change direction? Those things are really important. I think some of the other stuff in terms of his shots and so on weren't as clean as you would like. But I think whenever he got the ball, you could hear the noise raise in that stadium. That's how significant he is, not just to Spain, but just football in general. So when I'm watching him and I'm seeing the way that he's doing it, you're almost in some ways trying to figure out, like, what's his pattern? What's his trend? Does he come inside? Does he do this? Does he go down line? Does he do that? Well, he does everything, you know, and that's one of the things that makes him so, so good. And I think the point you made about the goal, if he's going to be a player that also goes and crashes the back post, there's probably 10 a season extra for him in there. And to be doing that at 18 is incredible. He's a great player. Obviously today, there was a lot more with Spain that we can talk about. Good to Oyarzabal, like, having an impact after everyone was talking about no touches. Well, how about some goals? But yeah, to watch that 18-year-old is still an absolute privilege.
Well, let's talk about Oyarzabal, because we know that he did have a first 30 minutes of the last game to forget, kind of became a butt of the jokes, wondering what is going on with Spain. But today he came up big, Ale.
Yeah, and the first big play for Oyarzabal wasn't scoring a goal as much as it was providing the service to Lamine Yamal at the back post. And Mikel Oyarzabal is just a creative player, but much more so than that, he's a very crafty, smart player. He's not going to depend on his speed because it's not the strength of his game. He's going to depend on positioning. And in order for him to take advantage of his positioning, there has to be service. And if you think back to the game against Cape Verde, there wasn't a whole lot of service. So there is a very obvious explanation as to why he's not touching the ball in that first game. And that is, there wasn't a lot of service coming from Spain. If you remember that game against Cape Verde, it was side to side, to side, to side. Are they going to cross it now? No, we're going to come back. Side, to side again. And so you can get on Mikel Oyarzabal all you want, but what was clear to see that there was more of an effort today from the very beginning of the game that we're going to be more vertical. And the first goal, in which is the service from Mikel Oyarzabal, is actually Spain playing the ball in behind to Mikel Oyarzabal, who gets on the channel, gets his head up and finds the service to the back post. And then he was the beneficiary of service inside the 18-yard box, or at the very least being in positions where he can finish chances. He did that very well. And the fact that both Lamine Yamal and Mikel Oyarzabal get their job done before halftime, and by then Luis de la Fuente said, all right, I've seen it all. You guys can come off the field. I think it's a useful exercise for both of them. And now you save their legs because you're thinking about Uruguay in the last match of the group stage.
Well, we just had a look at the stats there in terms of the numbers comparing their first game against Cabo Verde and now today against Saudi Arabia. Natum, not that much of a difference in the numbers, but of course this was a comfortable win. They were just overly more efficient. What did you make of, I guess, the improvement in the numbers between the two games?
To be honest, I think the last time we were on the show together, and Mario Suarez was on the show as well, and he spoke about how it's not something to overreact to. And I was sipping every single drop of that Kool-Aid, every single one.
Yep.
Because then as you look at the stats from today's game, they have been more clinical. I think there are aspects of the game where Ali is 100% right. They were more vertical. I think some of that comes from the fact that they're playing Yamal on that side, for example. But the numbers, they are similar, except they took their chances this time. And I think after the first game, we could have overreacted. And I think a bigger concern, if we're talking about teams of this tournament, would be, say, Portugal coming off their game, and having like 0.5 XG for the game. Spain, it was 2 point something. So they should have scored, but they didn't. But going into the next game, created similar or slightly more chances, a couple of bigger chances, and they were efficient. This is what it should have been in the first game, but instead, they just waited to the second.
There was a distinct feeling about this game that was far different than the one that we saw against Cape Verde, because they may have had similar numbers, but that side-to-side nonsense was driving me crazy. I have nothing to do with Spain, and that was driving me crazy. And I have to imagine that if you're a Spanish fan and you see this to this to this to this, and it's going nowhere, maybe there were some chances created, but it didn't feel quite like it did today. That from the very beginning, it was more in your face. It was more, we're going to test you in behind. It was more vertical. There were overlapping runs. You see some of the runs coming out of the midfield. You see midfielders that are not only receiving with just essentially, we're going to play the ball side to side. No, we're going to look to penetrate. So I think the presence of Dani Olmo from the start today makes a difference, because he's a guy that is more forward thinking than Fabian Ruiz. And so I think there are decisions that were made by Luis de la Fuente that were necessary. The Spanish team reacted the manner in which they should, and they got the result that they did. I also would say big picture, because some people may sit back and say, hold on a second, why were you not as excited about Brazil after they beat Haiti 3-0 as you are about Spain beating Saudi Arabia 4-0? It felt like today Spain, if they wanted, they could have made this 8.
Yeah.
Whereas Brazil at 3-0 felt that was as good as it was going to get. So the potential for Spain to continue to get better is there in this tournament, where I don't get the same sense with Brazil.
Natum, do you get that sense too as well? In terms of Spain as contenders, because Ale has them winning it all. I also picked them, or France, to win it all as well. We know that they are the favorites, along with France, to win this one. But we have seen some of the big teams have slow starts or surprising starts. France, even in that first half against Senegal. We've seen Portugal, who have to come up big as well. Spain obviously had that hiccup against Cabo Verde. But with what we saw today, especially against one of the weaker teams of the group, are they looking like the contenders?
Obviously,
you still have questions?
I still have questions. I think it feels natural to say they're going to be one of the teams that are in the final stages, maybe winning the whole thing, because they are sort of European champions themselves and the quality that they do have. But in terms of like the highest level play that I've seen, like just what feels objective, was the France second half. There was something there, and I could picture that France second half against the Spanish team tearing them apart.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen anything as it stands from Spain to where I think if they're going toe-to-toe with a team that's like really, really dynamic, they just comfortably get the better of them. And in fairness, in the late stages, it shouldn't be comfortable anyway. But yeah, you can see they're sort of going through the gears. As more time passes, Lamine Yamal will get better. He'll be fitter. He'll be a big part for what they want to do. But they haven't really so far been tested in a manner which we would have, which other teams have done, because that France win again was against Senegal, who are a really good side.
And still, if you think about what Spain is going to be in this tournament and where they're going to be in the bracket, you still have to do something against Uruguay.
Yes.
And they would have loved to have come to this game against Uruguay, the third match in the group stage, with everything resolved. Well, everything is not resolved for Spain. And depending on what Uruguay does against Cabo Verde, which we assume Uruguay beats Cabo Verde, then wait a minute. Does that mean that we have to beat Uruguay? And it makes for that game to be unnecessarily stressful, but it also forces Spain to put a lot of emphasis on winning that match, because it's theoretically, it sets you up for success as to where you are in the bracket. You want to finish first in the group. All things being equal, that's where you want to be. So there's going to be a lot more stress on this Uruguay match than Luis de la Fuente and Spain would have wanted, but that's the reality they got themselves into by drawing against Cape Verde.
Exactly. Now, before we close things out, though, just a quick look ahead then to now this Uruguay game against Cabo Verde, because Uruguay also, you could say, surprised us with their draw with Saudi Arabia. They probably will be feeling a little bit of the heat too going into this match now tonight, wondering, no way, could they again? So, Natum, what do you see happening?
like, I'm not the common ball expert, but I'm still somebody that believes that they should be winning this game. They should be winning this game, obviously. But I was working.
So what we said for Spain.
And it's last night I was watching Ecuador, and I was thinking, oh, just in a minute they're going to beat Curacao. Just 1 minute. Just give it a second. Give it just a couple more minutes, and then before you know it, I was talking about the game, and it was 0-0.
Yep.
So I suppose you never really know, but I think with things on the line for Uruguay, they'll win this game. And the point that you made, like that third group game, could be a very, very important one. But that's only going to be the case if they win today. And I think the motivation to do that will probably get them over the line.
Well, Ale is our CONMEBOL expert. Uruguay, surely. Ale.
So, I mean, I feel humbled.
Surely. To be in his presence, of course.
This is Uruguay all the time, all day, every day. And this whole idea of Cape Verde being able to hold off yet another team for 90 minutes. No,
Bielsa ball, too.
Don't talk to me about Bociña again. All these things come to an end today for Cape Verde. Look, it's a great story. It's a cute story. But the fact that Spain drew against Cape Verde, as much as it is a story about Cape Verde, it's embarrassing for Spain. And it would be just as embarrassing for Uruguay. Uruguay will win this match. They'll make it competitive, as they always do, because apparently Uruguay can't feel comfortable just winning a game 3-0. No. It will be unnecessarily stressful. But in the end, Uruguay are able to win this match and then set up this matchup against Spain in which the group will be decided.